Members, it's 2:30 and we've got a quorum already. This is the last meeting of the ITB panel in this session, and we can all enjoy our summer holidays after this meeting. Item 1 on the agenda, confirmation of minutes. We have two sets of minutes. Minutes of the special meeting held on the 28th of January and minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of May. Members can find some time to read the minutes. So can we confirm the minutes, please? We haven't received any proposals for amendments. All right. And then we have a list of outstanding items for discussion and also a list of follow-up actions. So members can read the two papers when they have time. So the outstanding items on the list can be followed up in the next session. Mr. Chang, now, according to some reports, my attendance rate was only 40%. But I want to tell you that I have always supported you. In fact, my attendance rate should have been 88%, not 40%. So please clarify this for me. Yes, Chairman, can you ask the clerk to check for me? According to the secretariat, my attendance rate was 29%. In fact, it should have been over 80%. Yes, the clerk, please. We've received inquiries from Mr. Zhang and Mr. Ng. And in fact, on Monday, we checked our records. In fact, printed the report, and the report showed that for Mr. Zhang, the attendance rate was 88%, and for Mr. Ng Leong Seng, the attendance rate was 81%. All right, so our secretariat has got these records, and perhaps you can make clarifications with the newspapers concerned. Ms. Emily Lau, I think it's really unfair to members if their attendance rates were underreported. But how come that has happened? Now, you know, this is the ITB panel, and it seems that some IT problems have occurred. I would just wish to clarify, Chairman. In fact, all the data have been put into the program. We don't know why this has happened, but we'll monitor the situation. We will also scrutinize the data very closely. Item 2 on the agenda, information papers issued since the last meeting. One paper has been issued since the last meeting. Please refer to the agenda for the title of the paper. We have 3 items on the agenda today. Item 1, public consultation on an application for a domestic free TV program service license by Hong Kong Television Network Limited. So let's invite the representatives from the Bureau and from the CA in. So we'd like to welcome from the CDB, Ms. Susie Ho, Permanent Secretary, Mr. Edward To, PAS, Mr. Ambrose Ho, Chairman of the Communications Authority, and Mr. and also Ms. Eliza Lee, Director General of Communications, Mr. Adrian Wong, Chairman, Broadcast Complaints Committee, Communications Authority, and then Ms. Katie Fong, Assistant Director, Broadcasting, and Mr. Cho Sa-leung, Assistant Director, Regulatory. Yes, Permanent Secretary. On the 11th of April, Chairman, HK TV submit an application to the CA for a free TV license, and the CA has the duty to study the application and to give recommendations to the CE in Council. And I will now invite Mr. Ho to give members more details. Yes, Chairman, thank you. We received an application for a free TV license from HKTV on the 11th of April this year. And we are now in the process of studying the application. As members are aware, we take into account a basket of factors. For example, whether the applicant is able to comply with the statutory requirements. And we also have a guidance note for applications for free TV licenses, and the assessment criteria are set out in the guidance note. I will not go into the details, and members can ask me questions later if they want to. We, of course, also need to take into account public opinion received. We had a 6-week consultation exercise from the 6th of June to the 17th of July. Now, in fact, this meeting should have been held last Monday on the 14th, and we in fact wanted to take the opportunity to listen to members' views and suggestions. It's true that the consultation period has already ended, but still would like to hear members' views on this application. And we also need to take into account the likelihood of prospective licensee complying with the license conditions and the potential impact of a new free TV licensee on the local television market. After we've studied this application, we'll make recommendations to the CE in Council as to whether we think the application should be approved or not. And we don't have a statutory deadline for making recommendations to the CE in Council, but of course we will make our recommendations to the CE in Council as soon as practicable. All right, Ms. Claudia Bo, Ms. Ma Fong Kwok, Charles Mok, Sin Chung Kai, Emily Lau, and UC Wing. Anyone else? Ong Leung Seng have indicated that they would like to give comments. Now, because we have 3 items on the agenda today, so 7 members, 4 minutes for each member. Ms. Claudia Mo. Thank you, Chairman. And now, of course, it's really a piece of good news for Hong Kong TV viewers, as HKTV has submitted an application for a free TV license. And it is said that you need to consider the potential impact of a new free TV licensee on the local television market. Now, we are a capitalist, we have a capitalist system here in Hong Kong, and competition is very important. And so please do not say that one more new free TV licensee will cause ATV to collapse. Now, in fact, many are of the view that the de facto monopoly enjoyed by TVB should be broken. And please do not repeat what we've seen in the 3G spectrum, because only China Mobile, in fact, can be the player in that case. So please do not create a de facto monopoly. And I'm sure Hong Kong people would like to have more choices. I understand that for TVB and ATV, their licenses will expire at the end of next year. And I understand that the CE in Council needs to inform them 1 year in advance whether their licenses will be renewed or not. So that would mean the end of this year. In other words, the CE in Council has to notify the 2 licensees by the end of this year. But then, if you still don't know whether the 2 existing licensees will have their licenses renewed, how can you assess the potential impact of a new free TV licensee on the local television market? Mr. Ho. Chairman, in studying this application, we need to look at the statutory requirements. We also need to look at a lot of factors. For example, programming arrangements and so on and so forth. I'm not asking about these factors. I'm concerned about the timing. So Ms. Mo is trying to say that the 2 licensees are seeking to have their licenses renewed, and so she wants to know when the appropriate time will be to make a decision on this one. Now, because we need to make recommendations on the renewal applications in around November this year, and we are still looking at the applications. And so this new application and the applications for renewal of licenses need to be dealt with separately. We will make recommendations on whether the existing licenses should be renewed, and if so, in what ways. And the CE in Council will need to make their decisions by November next year. But then at the same time, we need to study this application from HKTV before us, and we have to look at the entire market. So I want to say that the 2 sets of applications were dealt with separately, but then at the same time. Now, of course, these have to be dealt with separately because on the one hand, we have applications for renewal. On the other hand, we have an application for a new license. I don't quite understand. And sorry, I got the year wrong. I understand that their licenses will expire by the end of 2016. And then they will have to be informed as to the CE in Council decision next year. Is that right? No. In fact, their licenses will expire by the end of 2015. So I didn't get it wrong. No. Mr. Ma Fong Kwok, I want to say that I welcome this application by the HKTV, and I think the more applicants for free TV licenses or more applications for free TV licenses, the better. More applications would mean more competition, a healthy competition environment, more jobs, and also better quality programs. So I hope that the administration can assess the application prudently and transparently. So whatever your decision is, you should provide very thorough justifications. Last time, the full reasons were not given, and as a result, controversy was stirred up in society. So we understand that ETV and TVB are seeking to have their licenses renewed, and then there are 2 applicants, Fantastic TV, HKTVE, and their applications have been approved in principle. And then at the same time, we have an application submitted by the HKTV. Yes, I understand that you need to deal with these applications separately and individually, but I think you should look at the free TV market as a whole. You have to make sure that Hong Kong people do have genuine choices. Mr. Ho, I can promise members that we will deal with this these applications and also this one very prudently and impartially. In 2015, the CE in Council will make a final decision. But before that, we do not know whether the two existing licenses will be renewed or not. And so we have to deal with the application before us. We can't wait till the CE in Council has made a decision. So we can deal with this present application on the basis of the present situation. In other words, there are two free TV licensees at the moment, and then two licensees have got approval in principle. And if we start dealing with this application only after a decision has been made next year, then there will be delays.
I do understand your point, but then you have to take the overall picture into account. For the two new licenses, the CE Council has already made a decision for 9 months. Will they roll out their service smoothly, or will there be any abortion of the efforts? Well, I think it is just a matter of renewal or not. No, I'm referring to the new licenses. Please don't use up my time. I'm trying to clarify on your behalf for the sake of the chair of the BA. Mr. Ho, well, allow me to comment on the progress of the two licensees. Can I continue? Yes, please. It's okay if you switch off our microphones, but not theirs. The draft of the licenses have been referred to the two licensees. We are now in the process of bidding. We need to have restructuring, because the licensee cannot be a subsidiary, so they have to go about the organizational restructuring before they can comply with the legal requirements. For the two TV stations, one of them has told us clearly that they are in a position to do so. For the other one, we are still in the process of negotiation. There are 3 points that we are working on. First of all, we hope that they can give us an undertaking so that there won't be any bundling. Now, they have got free TV as well as pay TV, so we don't want them to bundle the free TV with the pay TV services. So we're trying to secure an undertaking from them. Now, for some licensees, they have got a license for pay TV. We want to know whether if they lose their pay TV license, will they be giving up their free TV service as well? And then certainly we don't want the free TV station to act as a content provider to feed programs to their pay TV service. We're still having the negotiations, and we haven't got a clear reply. Not too long ago, in public forums, you must have heard about the request for spectrum from the two licensees. In their initial applications, they were using their original spectrum, and they haven't put in a request to amend their application. So we spent time on securing their promise to use their existing spectrum. As of now, we have already got the confirmation from the relevant parties. So in relation to the two new licensees, I've just reported to you the progress. Well, they have given some undertakings, they've given some confirmations, and we hope we can proceed as soon as possible. We're now in the final stage. That is whether we should recommend to the CE Council to give them the formal license. In early August, they will come to a meeting with the BA to give us a final submission, and then we will handle the matter, and then we will come up with our final recommendation. So I think it is very clear. The Communication Authorities Chair has given us a very clear answer. I think we need to understand properly. Now, the CA would like to consult the public on the application for a domestic free television program service license by the Hong Kong Television Network Limited, Hong Kong TV for short. In other words, Mr. Ricky Wong Wai K's application. Now, Charles Mock, Mr. Ho has said that they would be collecting views from us today despite the expiry of the deadline. So I would like to talk about the matter. I don't think we need to justify the case because we have been talking about it for over a year's time. Now, for this application, when compared with the previous one, I think there have been some changes. Instead of 12 channels, there will be 3 channels. But on the contrary, the amount of investment has been tripled. I don't know whether they are trying to address the problems. Financial capability, production capability, strategies, etc. have been highlighted by the consultant in the previous report. Perhaps they are trying to address the concerns. Now, I would like to know whether the CA is going to engage a consultant to come up with a report afresh. And then, on the 5th of November 2013, a paper was issued, and it was said that 11 factors were taken into account when the CN Council examined the application. I'm not going to read out the 11 factors. For the 11 factors that they relied on last time, I want to know if the CA would also consider the same factors again. I don't know whether there will be more factors in the same basket of factors. So are you going to comment on the 11 factors in the assessment criteria? As you know that they do take such matters into concern. If I got it right, I think you said that there wouldn't be a timetable for the processing of the application. I think on the last occasion, I'm not sure whether you dragged your feet, but then probably you were being reasonable, but then it took the CN Council a long time. So when are you going to submit the matter to the CN Council? Even if they can have clearance from you, they may not be able to get the approval from that man. So can you give us the information? You have spent more than 2 minutes. Let him answer the question. I'll try my best to answer the questions. We are in the sort of last process, final stage, sort of, in relation to the engagement of a consultant. Now, to answer your second question, 11 factors to be considered by the CN Council. I think the guidelines are very clear as to what should be considered. I think there are 7 or 8 factors, but you know that the CN Council would consider those factors. Are you going to assist them? Well, for those factors, I think they will be facilitating the vetting by the CN Council. Well, it is a public document, so I would expect any applicant to rely on such guidelines in the public domain to present its application. So what about your recommendation to the EXCO? Please address me. You are not having a dialogue. You have to speak to me. Chairman, please continue. We haven't got a statutory timetable, but we're going to process the application ASAP. There are certain issues that we're still taking up with the applicant. So it depends on the correspondence of the 2 sides. Chair, for their recommendation, would it be made known to the public before going to the CN Council, or would we be given the answer at the end of the day after the CN Council has made a decision? The CN Council will make its own decision. What about your decision? We'll refer it to the CN Council. Next, Sin Chung Kai. Chair, your guidelines are no match for the men. I think you were supposed to be the Court of Final Appeal. With the interpretation of the law, now the power rests with the one up there. So would you be considering the factor of that man only? Mr. Ho, we will consider our own criteria in vetting this application. Permanent Secretary, last November, there was an announcement to issue 2 licenses. When are we going to watch the programs? P.S. As Mr. Ho has said, for the 2 licensees which have got the approval in principle, they are now entering the final stage. Once the CA has completed its work, then the recommendation will go to the CN Council, and then CN Council will deal with the matter ASAP, and then a proper license will be issued, and then in 12 months' time, the first licensee should be able to start broadcasting. That is within 12 months' time. Now, CA's chairman, for the current application, do you have a timetable? Maybe it's not surprising for the CN Council to sit on it for 2 to 3 years again. Do you have a timetable? Charles Mock asked the question already. We'll do it ASAP. Can you quantify it? 10 years, 12 months, 6 months? So can you give us a rough idea about the timetable for the sake of the applicant and the public? Mr. Ho, I think it is an interactive process. We do need to seek clarification. We have already asked the applicant for more information and to clarify certain matters. For this application, in some aspects, it is different from the previous one. So we are talking about an interactive process. I can't give you a firm reply. Now, for the consultant's report, on this occasion, are you going to have a public tender? And can the previous bidder bid for the contract again? We'll follow the usual process of engaging consultants. We are almost approaching the final stage of the process. We are about to recruit a consultant, Sin Chung Kai. Next, Emily Lau. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We fully support the application by the Hong Kong TV. We have submitted a paper. The authority has already received it. Well, for this application, I think this is very similar to our discussion of universal suffrage, because the public would like to have competition. We want to have genuine choices. Currently, the 2 free TV stations are really performing in a very disappointing way. With a new player, then we will have more competition. For the fast that we had last time, it was sensational, not just locally, but also internationally. I understand that there is no ceiling to the number of licenses, but then 1 man or 2 men in the CN Council came out to say that there was a worry that perhaps more competition would affect the existing licensees. So I just don't know how to operate. In public, we have been told something which is in conflict with what we know all the time. So will the application be vetoed according to his own views, despite your guidelines? Mr. Ho, do you have any orders from above? No. We haven't got a ceiling on the number of licenses. For the vetting criteria, we'll adopt them still as before. We will deal with the application independently. Of course, we do hope that you will do so. You gave them a report, and now you know about the outcome of your last recommendation. So we have been disappointed. You said that you would act independently, and we welcome this. You have said that there wouldn't be guidelines from them. There wouldn't be orders from them. But the outcome of the last round has shown that there has been a change in the criteria. Has there been a change in the policy, PS? I remember that the Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development has said that we have been consistent in our policies. There has been no change. When we come to the consideration of applications, the CN Council took an overall view. It was prudent in assessing the case, and it is hoped that there will be a stable and prudent development. Just now, Mr. Mock referred to 11 factors in the assessment criteria, one of them being the guidelines issued by the CA.
And of course, there is a need to take into account the local broadcasting scene. All right, Permanent Secretary, I remember last time the CN Council did not seek the views of the CA again. So will the CN Council go back to the CA to seek certain clarification? It's up to the CN Council to decide. The CN Council will assess whether there's a need to do so. But then the process was not fair. The recommendations were made, and it seemed that the policy was changed, and the CA was not consulted again. So please bring our views back to the CN Council. Please do not change the policy. We can't have such incidents one after another in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong TV viewers are looking forward to watching better quality TV programs. Mr. Yu Si Wing. No, I understand that the administration has its policy on free TV licenses. So I just want to know whether, because of the pressure from LegCo members and the public, the administration will relax its policy, or will it tighten its policy? And then what about the assessments to be done? And I understand that every time there is a consultation exercise, there will be a pro forma comments or submissions. So how are you going to deal with those? So Mr. Yu is asking you whether you're going to, or whether the administration is going to relax its policy on free TV licenses, or whether it's going to tighten its policy. Now, in fact, we deal with all applications prudently, and will not succumb to any kind of pressure. We are an independent and statutory body to study the application and to make recommendations to the CN Council, and we will act in an independent and impartial manner. And then hiring of consultants. So will you also take into account other comments? We'll of course take into account comments received during the consultation exercise. And then how are you going to deal with the pro forma submissions? We so irrespective of the format of the submissions, we regard them as submissions collected during the consultation exercise. And the CA has its own legal advisors. These legal advisors are independent of the administration. So, and as a result, we can be sure that the CA will be able to deal with the application impartially and independently. Now, Chairman, I want to say that this HKTV application is a sensitive issue, and it's a matter of great public concern. So I think it's important that the administration can be seen to be dealing with the application impartially. I want to say that at the moment, the CA is dealing with the application. The CA is not a government department, it's an independent statutory organization. So please don't keep talking about the administration. And then the CA will submit its recommendations to the CE in Council, and the CE in Council will make a decision. So you are asking the CA whether it's going to appoint a committee to deal with the application. Thank you for the reminder, Chairman. Now, the CA is responsible for dealing with and studying the application. But then some people were of the view that there were problems in the CA's handling of the previous application. So how can you make sure that people will know that you've acted impartially and objectively? Ms. Lee. Now, in fact, concerning applications for new licenses or applications for a renewal of licenses, I think the CA has always been seen to be impartial and independent. Mr. Ng Leong Sing, can I ask the CA through you how many comments or submissions were received during the 6 weeks? And I want to know whether those comments have been dealt with, because Para 9C says that the CA needs to take into account public opinion received. But then the views expressed in the submissions may be divergent and diversified. So is there a mechanism to deal with such views and opinion? And then 9D says that the CA will look at the likelihood of prospective licensee complying with the proposed license conditions to be imposed. So this is rather vague. So when will the proposed license conditions be imposed? And what will be the format of these conditions, and when will they be imposed? So can we have some details, please? I think Ms. Tai can tell you a bit more about the public consultation exercise. Yes, Chairman, thank you. After the 6-week consultation period, we knew that we had received about 10,000 submissions. So we will try to divide the comments into different categories. And when the CE in Council makes a decision, then the comments and submissions and views received will also be published. And so we are now in the process of collating and analyzing the comments received. Chairman, is there a deadline for the completion of this exercise? Because I understand that this organization is producing some programs and has been hiring people. So I just want to know whether there is a deadline. Mr. Ng, in fact, they've already said that there is no timetable, but then perhaps I can invite Mr. Ho to try to reply again. Let me answer this question, Chairman. The ordinance does not impose any statutory deadline on the CA for making recommendations to the CE in Council on license applications. But then, as Mr. Ho has pointed out, the process already started, and we will, and the CA will act as soon as possible. And of course, there will have to be some interaction between the CA and the applicant. So we can only say as soon as possible. Yes, Chairman. Mr. Ho. Now, concerning the license conditions to be imposed, we are mainly talking about the programs. For example, a free TV licensee has to provide cultural programs for the elderly, for children, for young people. And so we need to sort out with the applicant what the programming arrangements will be. We may impose certain conditions, or the applicant may come up with some proposals. I believe if they have read the paper, they will know the arrangements. Christopher Chong not here. Mr. Ronnie Tong. Last time there was a big row over the free TV licenses issue. So the man's view was quite different from your view, Chairman of the CA. So will this happen again next time or this time? And can you tell me whether that man has given a the reasons for not agreeing with you? And then third, assuming that that man again on this occasion disagrees with you and stirs up conflict, then how are you going to deal with such continuous conflicts? And will you feel or believe that the CA should no longer exist? Now, I think it's important that Mr. Ronnie Tong, the man that Mr. Ronnie Tong referred to is C.Y. Leung, 689. I think it's important, or else Mr. Ho may choose not to answer you. So we must have the record right. So any reasons given for the refusal last time? And then if again that man disagrees with you, then will you think that the CA need not exist anymore? Now, Chairman, when we submit our report to the CA Council, we do not just give the recommendations, we also give our justifications. But then the justifications were not heeded on the last occasion. Then we are an independent statutory body. We give our advice and recommendations in an objective manner. The CA Council may have other considerations. But what other considerations are you talking about, Chairman? Political factors? I have no knowledge as to the discussions that took place in the CA Council, so I cannot really give you an answer. But we, in our report, do give our recommendations and all the reasons. We give detailed reasons for the reference of the CA Council. And then a second question. As to whether the application this time, or as to the fact that the application this time is different from his application on the last occasion, whether the changes have been made to cater for the reasons for refusal given by the CA Council, I can't give an answer on behalf of the applicant. And then I want to say that we do have a role to play, because we look at each and every application very carefully and very objectively. But what if again your views and the man's views are polarized? So do you think you should still stay in the CA? So that's another question. Just now you asked whether the CA should no longer should still exist, and now you are asking the chairman whether he will still wish to stay, if because that man will stay. So because if every time he disregards your recommendation, then will you still want to stay in this position? Now, we are both barristers, and but the Court of Appeal may overrule the CFI's ruling or decision, but it doesn't mean that the CFI need not exist. That's different. All right, long hair, silence, please, because the two barristers are having a discussion. Because I didn't quite hear what the chairman said. I just want to say that different parties may have different views on the same issue, but I think our duty is to give our recommendations and give all the reasons. All right. So if he appoints you to be the chairman of the CA, will you be willing to take up the post? If he appoints me, then I will take up the post. Mr. Ho, I want to say that when the courts hand down judgments or rulings, they cite previous court cases. And so please do not insult the courts. But when the man made a decision, he didn't cite any court cases. Now, Mr. Ho, you are a barrister. If a CFA judge doesn't give an analysis, if he doesn't cite previous court cases, he merely says, that's my ruling, will you find that acceptable? I think your organization is like the ears of a deaf person and the tongue of a parrot.
You are just parroting. Panel Chairman, please ask the Chairman of the CA, Mr. Ho. Now, Mr. Ho, you have said that your organization that you are serving is appointed by the administration. Now, you work within this organization. You are being abused by the CE time and again. Now, on this occasion, for the Hong Kong TV application, last time it was said that they didn't have enough money, they were too ambitious. Now they try to increase the amount of money involved and they would like to reduce the programming. Now, Mr. Chairman, now in the past, if somebody has been abused, then she would just commit suicide to maintain her reputation. In modern days, you just walk away, you just resign to maintain your good name. Mr. Wong, 689. Mr. 669 is a better nickname than that man for CY Leung. Now, for you and also your subordinates, including Ms. Lee, if you cannot defend yourselves, then I think you should resign, as you are not civil servants. This is not the case for Ms. Susie Ho. She's a civil servant. Ms. Lee is also a civil servant, seconded to the office. So Ms. Lee doesn't have to resign, but you have to resign, Mr. Ho. Are you going to resign? And you do so on behalf of the civil servants so as to challenge 669. You have got some tens of seconds left. Please leave behind time for him to answer your question. Mr. Leung's question is based on an assumption. Now, the Sitting Council may come up with a different view from your recommendation concerning Hong Kong TV's application. Are you going to resign over this matter? Can I not answer a hypothetical question? This may happen. Mr. Ho, that did happen in the past. And so we have this query, we have this view. So I think it's better for you to give an answer. Give us time, give us opportunity to do our job properly. No, he's not going to answer your question. Mr. Raymond Chen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 3 licensees applied, but just 2 got their licenses. That's what happened last time. The CA and the Sitting Council are 2 different organizations. For your recommendation to them, they can contradict you. They are not a rubber stamp. They can't be expected to endorse whatever you recommend. So to follow up on Mr. Ronnie Tong's question, for your recommendation on this occasion, if the Seeing Council is to hold a opposite view, I won't advise you to leave. Now, what you can do is to do whatever is within your jurisdiction. If we ask for more, we are making life difficult for you. In relation to paragraph 9, in particular subparagraph E, it talks about the potential impact of a new free TV licensee on the local television market in relation to the assessment of the application. Now, this is one of the factors. It involves a lot of the things that we have been referring to. That is whether ATV will be having the license renewed and whether the two licensees are going to roll out their service after they've been given approval in principle. I think all such matters would have an impact on the local TV market. So, Mr. Ho, can you explain paragraph 9E? How are you going to assess the potential impact on the local television market resulting in your recommendation for or against? Now, there are 5 elements in paragraph 9. So Raymond Chen is focusing on 9E. So you can also choose to answer or not in relation to the question of resignation or otherwise. Well, this is a new application. But then the factors are always there. So we did have it last time as well. Concerning the assessment of the potential impact, we will also be looking at the local television market again. The impact can be positive. It may also be negative. Once we have got full information, we'll carry out an overall assessment. I don't think he has answered the question at all. Now we are at a critical time. Whether there's a new licensee or not, ATV may not be able to survive. So how are you going to factor in such elements to assess this case? Are you going to diagnose today or whether to November next year? Or maybe in a few months' time, ATV would just surrender its license? Mr. Hong, of course. We don't know about the renewal application result until November next year. But as of now, we can adopt different perspectives in looking at the current status of the local television market. For example, I don't think it is right for me to divulge the details. We just want to look at the broad directions. We'll look at the local TV market, and if something happens, we want to know about the development in the local TV market. So we are going to get a consultant to give us comments. Well, we are really worried that if one day you come back to say again that you're worried about the survival of ATV and so you're not going to grant a license, then it will be too bad for the people of Hong Kong. Wong Ting Kwong, Ann Jang, and some other members would also like to ask questions. We have to end the panel meeting by 4:30, and we've got 2 more agenda items. So first of all, Wong Ting Kwong. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the broadcaster licensees, we are told about fit and proper persons. Well, recently there have been reports saying that Mr. Ricky Wong, chairman of the Hong Kong TV, is unfortunately involved in a criminal case on the mainland. Have you heard about this? If it is unfortunately to be substantiated, and if Mr. Wong is subject to investigation, I want to know whether Hong Kong TV's application will be affected. There's also one other question. For domestic free TV program service license applications, of course, we will consider a number of factors: financial capability, technical ability, programming ability, etc. If in the course of application it comes to your notice that the applicant organization is not up to the mark in such areas, are you going to inform the applicant and give the applicant time to make improvements and then continue with the assessment once they have reached the standards? For the first question, I think they can choose to answer or not, because they may not be too aware of the specific case that you referred to. They may not be reading those magazines. So, Mr. Ho, it's up to you. Let me talk about the principles. We have to be satisfied that the directors must be fit and proper persons. Yes, they have been very strict about the gatekeeping. Whether they have a criminal record, whether there are problems of integrity, all such matters will be considered by us. Understood. Second question. It depends on the conditions that we have been referring to. Say, for example, the licensee cannot be a subsidiary. So either they restructure their organizations or they use other means so as to satisfy us that it is not a subsidiary of a corporation. Before that, we cannot submit the application. No, I'm referring to the fact that the applicant may not be financially sound. Can they go out to get sufficient money? And what about technical expertise? If it is inadequate, can they quickly acquire new facilities so as to reach your standards? And if they have problems with programming, maybe they can immediately get hold of Mr. Raymond Wong, the chair of the panel, to host the programs. So would you give them time to make up for the shortfall? Well, for the factors that you referred to, management, commitment, financial soundness, all of them have been set out in the guidelines. When an applicant is to make an application, we require information to be given on all aspects. For example, financial soundness. If there is some pledging from the bank or there are directors making commitments, then we'll examine the documents. The same is true for technical expertise and programming as well. So we have to be satisfied that they are able to comply with the requirements before there is a basis for us to make a recommendation to the Senior Council. So they must be able to meet the requirements in the first place. As to how much time is needed, that's exactly what we referred to when we said that it's an interactive process. Ms. N. Zhang, I have always got this question in mind for the CA. When there is a decision to grant a license to a particular company, I want to know how the CA is to monitor the performance. In the beginning, they may be making very ambitious commitments. If they fail, I want to know what you can do. Do you have to wait until the expiry of the license before you can act on it? Or is there a mechanism to make sure that all the time they're able to meet the requirements and can honor their pledges? Ms. N. Zhang, we are talking about Hong Kong TV's application for a free TV license. There are a number of factors to be considered. But then I think actually you were referring to whether a incumbent licensee can be subject to monitoring. Yes, once they've got a license, they should also be monitored. But this is not what we are talking about today. They are in the process of getting a license. Now, you have said what you are referring to is that once they have met the requirements, you want to know how the CA is going to exercise monitoring. Would you like to rephrase your question? Now, you are considering your application. So when you assess the application, you have to consider whether in future they're able to meet all their requirements. So you have to act like a prophet to foretell whether the Hong Kong TV is able to meet all the licensing requirements in the future. Mr. Chairman, say for example, if in the application they are making certain commitments, they are making certain pledges, and that would form part of the application. And in future, we'll check whether they are in compliance or not. And then there will be an interim review. And then for the 2 existing licensees, we have a public engagement exercise. And then we have focus groups. The 2 TV stations will be invited to attend the sessions so as to meet face-to-face with the audience. So that through such a dialogue, we can be sure about the quality of the program and can satisfy the audience. Ms. Zhang, do you have a follow-up question? I want to know, say for example, like we have got an applicant who has broken the law. Would you like to consider this? Mr. Martin Kwong asked a similar question while you were not in the conference room. Mr. Ho. Fit and proper person. Ms. Zhang, it is a statutory requirement to have a fit and proper person. It means that he must be a person of integrity, and he's not a person who has got a criminal conviction. Now, if in the course of it, if a director or if a principal officer becomes unfit and improper, then we have to deal with the case.
Right, next, Paul Chair. No, Chairman. Now, for the World Cup match, the losers will have to wait for 4 years to stage a comeback. And then if you fail in this year's exams, you can retake the exams only next year. But then for an applicant who is unsuccessful, can he reapply after shortly after the application has been refused? So I just want to know how you look at the material time. Do you look at the market at the time the application is made, or will you look at the situation when the application will have been approved and the licensee will have commenced his operation? And then in dealing with an application for a license, what is the cost? Does it mean that an applicant, an unsuccessful applicant can apply again and again continuously, and as a result we still have to incur the cost to study the application? And it doesn't say when the CE in Council needs to make a decision. So in order to be fair, do you think the law should be amended to impose a deadline on the CE in Council to make a decision? Mr. Ho. Chairman, when we deal with the application, we do get a consultant to help us assess the market situation, and the consultant will look at different scenarios. Now, normally, a license is valid for 12 years, and so a long-term view of the market will be taken. But then how are you going to make the projection, because the number of licensees may change? So we don't just look at one scenario, we look at different scenarios and different permutations as well. Yes. So we look at the market situation from different perspectives. And if we anticipate that there will be changes in the market, those will also be considered. The law doesn't say when an applicant can put in an application. But then the law states that whenever there is an application, the CA has the duty to study the application and to make recommendations. So that's the statutory duty of the CA. And all the costs to be incurred will come from our operating fund. And how much and does it cost to study an application, including consultancy fees? It's difficult for me to tell you a figure. And the ordinance states that after the BA has or the CA has given the recommendations, the CE and Council will as soon as possible make a decision on whether a new license should be issued or whether an existing license should be renewed. And if the CE and Council decides not to renew the license of an existing licensee, then the CE and Council needs to give the licensee at least 1 year notice. But then concerning issuing of a new license, of course, there is no need to give this 1 year notice. So we thank Mr. Ho and his colleagues for coming. The next item is information security. I understand that the Permanent Secretary will stay for the discussion of this item. And we'll invite the other officials in, and they include Mr. Daniel Lai, Government Chief Information Officer, Mr. Victor Lam, Deputy Officer, and Mr. Alex Lee, Assistant Officer. Now, we've overrun for the first item because members had a lot of questions, and so I think we need to reduce the time allocated for this item, and I don't think we need a PowerPoint presentation by the administration. This is because we need to save time. We need to complete this item by 3:55, and we have one more item because there is the AJLS panel meeting in this conference room at 4:30, and so we must finish the meeting punctually. Ronnie Tong, Charles Mock, anyone else? Claudia Mo, anyone else? Anyone else who would like to ask questions on information security? All right, 3 minutes for each member. And also Elizabeth Platt. Ronnie Tong. Chairman, I understand that there is only one offense, unauthorized or a dishonest use of computers, and it seems that we can only rely on this one offense. But then we can see that in fact there is no privacy concerning the use of the internet, and there are a lot of hacking activities. There is a report in the newspapers today. But anyway, does the administration think that there is a need to enact a new piece of legislation to deal with intrusion of privacy, cyber attacks, and also ruining others' reputation on the internet, and so on and so forth? Permanent Secretary. Now, in fact, there is also the Theft Ordinance, and also the Telecommunications Ordinance, and also the Personal Data Privacy Ordinance. And then they do contain provisions on criminal offences. What if a hacker hacks into my email account or my Facebook? So which ordinance can I rely on? I can't really give you an answer offhand. That's why I'm asking whether there is a piece of legislation to deal with common offences of intrusion into people's privacy. Now, in fact, there are a few ordinances that can be applied to deal with information security. Cap 106, Section 27A. Unauthorized access to computers and information in computers. And then the theft ordinance, Cap 210, Section 19. There's an offense to damage and deface computer records. And the maximum imprisonment term is 10 years. And I think this penalty can achieve effective deterrent effects. So I want to know whether anyone has been arrested. Now, concerning the the civil referendum platform, there was a massive cyber attack. So perhaps Mr. Charles Mock can give you more information. I want to know whether investigation has been carried out and whether prosecution action has been taken. All right, Charles Mock. Yes, I want to ask about the civil referendum. In fact, it was a cyber attack of a massive scale. The scale could be said to be unprecedented, and that occurred at the end of June this year. Concerning protection of important infrastructure, it is said that in 2013 there was the theme of combating focused attacks, and there were drills. I understand that at the end of June, .hk domains, Internet Exchange Center in Hong Kong, those infrastructure were affected. So we want to know what contingency measures were adopted. Yes, thank you, Chairman, and I thank Mr. Mott for his question. After the incident, we liaised with the various stakeholders, .hk domain management company, Hong Kong Internet Exchange Center, and so on and so forth, because they were responsible for the infrastructure in Hong Kong, and we proposed that protection measures be beefed up. In fact, a meeting was held after the incident. The two companies attended the meeting. The police and different ISPs were also invited to the meeting. And we tried to review. Chairman, the Security Bureau kept telling me that they could not do anything if nobody made a report to the police. So is it that concerning contingency measures, you do not take contingency measures unless you receive reports? Now, when there were reports that there were cyber attacks, we took the initiative to contact the .hk domain management company. We asked the company to step up its preventive measures. So, Chairman, simply put, you do take the initiative to take preventive action. But then is it that concerning enforcement, it's very difficult to arrest the hackers? The enforcement is done by the police. As members may recall, the Hong Kong Exchange was also subject to a DDoS attack, and people were arrested in that case. Ms. Claudia Mo. Yes, thank you. Chairman, I thought you are mainly responsible for protecting official information on the internet. But now it seems that the scope of your work is broader. Now concerning the civil referendum, the attack was of an unprecedented scale, hundreds of millions per hour or per second. So it was really alarming. Not all police officers are IT experts, but then we have the audio, and the audio is responsible for information security and internet security. So is it that the organization in fact reported the attack to you, or is it really is it really appropriate for people to report cases of cyber attack to you? Because you said the police are responsible for taking enforcement action. And say if my flat has been burgled into and I call the police will not come and say, oh, it's very difficult to prevent burglaries. You just step up your security measures at home. So if the person in charge of the civil referendum had sought your assistance, would you have given assistance? Because they went to the Cloudflare and assistance was given round the clock, and maybe because of this they have been accused of colluding with outside forces. So apart from advising people to step up security measures, is there any assistance that you can give? Now within the police there is a cyber safety center, and there are experts within the police responsible for investigating IT crime, and there is an IT crime unit within the police, and enforcement action is taken by the police. In the audio, we mainly focus on promoting public education. We also try to step up exchange of information, and we also try to share information with people in the market. Perhaps the deputy officer can supplement.
We have been helping different organizations so as to help them to prevent attacks, like the Computer Emergency Response Team Coordination Center. We understand that we do try to help the organizations. If they have been attacked, then they can come to us to get some help. I think everything is in the paper. When Ms. Mo asked a question, it has been said that the police has set up a technology crime division. Well, it is a sort of two-edged sword. It can either protect you, or it can either do you, or it can also do you harm. Well, for the cybercrime statistics, I want to know whether it involves apps-related crime. Do you have the figures? Now, we know that for mobile applications, they are commonly used. On the 15th of July, there was a weekly magazine saying that for certain applications, they are embedded with hackers' programs, and there are also a lot of usage conditions, and you can't prevent others taking your photographs unlawfully. So what about the risk concerning the use of mobile phones? What have you done, and what are you going to do? Do you have the figures so as to enable us to know about the degree of the risk? We do attach a lot of importance to the security of mobile devices, and therefore through a number of channels, through talks, etc. We have been involving this topic. Moreover, for our web page, we have the InfoSec network, and you can also find the information related. For Hong Kong Search website, they have also got a dedicated service to help the citizens to know about mobile security. As to the question asked by Ms. Quat concerning the figures, currently the police hasn't got a separate category for mobile applications. We have got email scams, unauthorized access to computers, internet banking. Well, we are concerned about the apps. Don't try to download the apps from the mainland easily, because you can easily lose your information. Please focus on the question. We've got all the information on our website. Say, for example, and in fact, let me rephrase the question. If somebody, as a result of having downloaded such an application, and then others are able to hack into your mobile device, you lose all your information, or they steal your identity to engage in other activities. So stealing others' identity over the internet. And if the victim is to report to the police, can you trace the culprit? Well, when there is a theft, then it is a breach of the crimes ordinance. All right, the next one, Mr. Yu Si Wing. Let me go back to the question of civil referendum. Just now, the CA's office told us that they have not been approached by the organizer. Please confirm this point. Well, I think the question is, just now many members referred to the civil referendum's website being hacked. So he would like to know whether they took the initiative to approach you for help. No, they didn't approach us directly for help. This is because we're responsible for the infrastructure. And there's about .hk. Well, we are talking about information security. So it's about the work of the audio. So please read the paper. For internet crime, cyber crime, that's for the police, and we've got the relevant laws. So if you think they're inadequate, we better try to amend the law. Mr. Chairman, have they asked for help? I want to know whether audio, and I assume audio is more capable, so whether audio has been providing assistance to them so as to make their task secure. We are not going to provide assistance or support to individual organizations. Generally speaking, if individual organizations have a security problem, if they have a security event, then the Hong Kong PC has got a Hong Kong Computer Emergency Response Team Coordination Center, which helps the SMEs. It also sends out security-related information. But then it is a matter of public interest and also the public's right to information. So if somebody turns to you for help, are you going to help? Because this is different from personal usage and different from the normal commercial activities. Mr. Lai, if there is a cyber event, we're able to get the information from different sources, and the Hong Kong Search and the Hong Kong InfoSec portal can also send out the information. If they need any help, they can approach the Hong Kong Search. Well, that's it for this item. We turn to the next one. That's about the topic on facilitating a digital economy. We have Mr. Godfrey Leung, Undersecretary for Commerce and Economic Development, Mr. Lai, the Government Chief Information Officer, will stay, and we have also got Ms. Vanessa Young as well as Ms. Joey Lam. So, Mr. Godfrey Leung, we have the Undersecretary. He's the Undersecretary rather than the Deputy Secretary, so the title is wrong in Chinese. So please amend your sitting plan. So maybe I'll give the floor to the Undersecretary. Thank you. We would like to develop Hong Kong's economy by having the Digital 21 strategy. Every year we come here to report to you on our latest progress. We have an open and safe and competitive environment which is conducive to the development of a vibrant ICT industry. With the concerted efforts of the government, ICT industry, academia, and the community, Hong Kong has consistently performed well in international ICT rankings. The SARG would continue to work closely with the local ICT industry and supporting organizations so as to drive the development of our digital economy. We would like to facilitate the development of data center. We would like to have ICT collaboration with the mainland. Thirdly, we would like to promote ICT manpower development. Fourthly, we would like to help the development of ICT startups. Fifthly, we would like to adopt ICT among the SMEs. And sixthly, we have the International IT Fest 2014. We would like to enhance and promote Hong Kong's image as a leading ICT hub in the region. I would like to invite the Deputy Government Chief Information Officer to give us a briefing. Well, we're running out of time. I think we can skip the briefing and we can go directly into the questions. So, Christopher Cheung, Elizabeth Kwok, UC Wing. Who else would like to ask questions? Charles Mock and Emily Lau. Anybody else? So for the time being, 3 minutes each, 5 members asking questions. Christopher Cheung. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What about data center development? In paragraph 4, a number of strategies have been mentioned. Say, for example, providing land for data center use and encouraging the use of industrial buildings and industrial lots for data centers. You know that Google gave up the idea of having a data center in Hong Kong, and then the site granted has been returned to the government. They have decided to set up the data center in Singapore instead. According to information, the main reason being that the land offered is inadequate for their use. So do we have any figures? I want to know how many data centers have been set up in Hong Kong by the major ICT players in the world. Are we lagging behind Singapore? Since the year 2001, 19 hectares of land have been made available. The data center is not a sector that we regulate. We haven't got the relevant figures with us, but we believe that over 50 data centers have already been set up in Hong Kong. According to a global investigation, currently Hong Kong is the most popular center for establishing data center in the region. Since June 2010, we have launched the policy to encourage the use of industrial buildings, industrial lots for data centers. In fact, 12 applications have been received, though it says 11 in the paper. We're happy to see that many organizations would like to set up data centers in Hong Kong. Now, for the quality of our internet service, it ranks first in the world, and the the internet penetration rate is also very good. So I want to know whether there are further measures to encourage the clients to set up data centers in Hong Kong. I think you know that a lot of the industries have already been relocated northwest, so we continue to encourage the conversion of industrial buildings into data centers. We also provide a one-stop service to enable investors from overseas countries. We are now in the process of turning a second site into a high-tier data center, and then we are getting ourselves ready to approach the town planning board. So there will be another site for the establishment of a high-tier data center.
Deputy Chairman. Yes, thank you, Chairman. It is said in the paper that in fact, the ICT sector represents 6.2% of our GDP, and concerning our technological infrastructure, and in fact, it's very advanced. So how come the ICT sector only accounts for 6.2% of our GDP? Israel is 15%, Finland about 14%, South Korea about 12%. And I understand that in other modern cities in the world, ICT accounts for a much higher percentage of their respective GDP. So why is it that it's only 6.2% in Hong Kong? Can this percentage be increased? And are there plans to increase this percentage? And then it is said that the administration has been trying to earmark suitable land for data center use. But then, look, IT companies also need more office space. For the new phase of the science park, the land will be used for residential development. So I want to know whether there will be new sites coming on stream for ICT use. Yes, thank you, Chairman. ICT accounts for 6.2% of our GDP. In fact, that's already quite satisfactory, though there is always room for improvement. And if we want to see improvement, we need to have the concerted efforts of the government and the private sector. The private sector's investment in R&D is relatively low. If we can have more investments from the private sector in R&D, then more products can be produced. As a result, ICT will represent a higher percentage of Hong Kong's GDP. So I just want to say that in terms of products, we really need to work harder. And then land, as we all know, land resources in Hong Kong are scarce. We'll try to secure more sites for the development of data centers. I wish to follow up, Chairman. it is said that the private sector hasn't been investing too much in R&D. But in my view, nor has the government been investing too much in R&D. So perhaps the government can do more. If a reply can't be given today, I hope to have a reply after the meeting. All right, Mr. Yu Si Wing. Chairman, para 18 says that there were events under the brand name of meetings between SMEs and IT people. In fact, there was such an activity in June. I attended one of them, and many organizations, SMEs, and ICT companies were present at the exchange sessions. So concerning the activity in June, does the administration think it is effective? And will there be more such sessions? And what is your budget for organizing such activities in future? Yes, Chairman, we attach great importance to encouraging SMEs to make use of ICT. And so we have these matching activities between SMEs and IT companies. We hope that IT companies can work out ways to help SMEs increase their productivity and their business turnover. Companies may get suppliers to develop the solutions for them. And then we have SME subsidy schemes, and every year we invite we try to encourage the development of software for the use of a particular industry. For example, we now have a cloud solution being developed for the security industry. And then, in fact, there was the matching session for the tourism industry. If we receive proposals, then we can consider providing subsidies for the development of the relevant systems. Chairman, I just want to get more information from the audio. And I hope that there can be rigorous follow-up action after the exchange sessions. All right, so please give us the relevant information and papers. Mr. Charles Mock. Chairman, thank you. It is said that infrastructure, nurturing of talents, and promotion within the sector are very important. Yes, infrastructure and human talents are important. But then concerning support for the sector, I want to say that we need more information. First of all, the market. Now for IT companies, some cater for the local market, some cater for the for overseas markets. How can you make sure that the pie can become bigger, so to speak? And then concerning procurement by the government, for example. Now let's look at the practices in South Korea, Singapore, and so on and so forth. Now let me stress that they are all WTO members. So. And then it is said that you provide incentives for new startups. But I understand that it's important that we can try to attract investments. So there should be focused measures in this regard. And then for land, for the data centers and for the expansion of the science park, can you in future tell us what your plans are, what the promotion and expansion plans are? Thank you. Yes, Chairman. Yes, we'll try our best to provide such information in our reports. Concerning funding, now the assistance or subsidy schemes are not administered by our office. I want to say that we do encourage SMEs to take part in the bidding of government supplies. And in fact, we do have some small contracts worth less than $1.43 million for SMEs to bid. And then we understand that about 50% of the bidders are SMEs. Sorry to interrupt. Yes, I understand that you will give us such data, but I just hope that more information can be included in your report. And then I want to say that in fact concerning investment promotion, that's still under the CEDB, and I think it's important that we attract funds from outside. Ms. Emily Lau, I also want to ask a question about SMEs. I want to refer to page 12, the table on page 5. 2009 to 2013 concerning use of computers, use of internet connections. Of course, we've seen improvements. But then concerning having web pages or websites, 60% for medium-sized establishments and only 20% for small-sized establishments. Why is that the case? Is it that SMEs do not think that having their own web pages and websites is helpful? And these are our percentages. How do we compare with our key competitors? Yes, Chairman. The utilization rate is low because of these reasons. First, they don't think they really have this actual need. It really depends on the nature of the industry. Now, for the small-sized establishments, maybe they only have very few staff members, and the nature of their business is such that having web pages and websites is not helpful. But do you just let them decide whether they have the need, or do you try to tell them how they can make use of IT to enhance their business? That's why there are these exchange sessions between IT companies and SMEs, and we also have training programs. This is because we think there is a need to step up training and awareness. And how do these percentages compare with the percentages in other cities, which are our key competitors or key trading partners? I don't have the figures here, Chairman, but then recently we have had some exchange with Singapore. And in fact, they are also working on this now. For example, for using personal computers, 2013, our percentage is 72, their percentage is 75. I hope that you can give us more information about our key trading partners, our key competitors, so that we know whether we are still taking the lead or whether we are lagging farther and farther behind. Yes, we want to know more about the promotion system. And then for the support scheme for the SMEs, 22 items, 22 projects have been completed, 24 projects in 17 sectors were selected. So is it that the results have been adopted? Yes. All right, do members have other questions? No? Then thank you very much. In the past 2 years, we were able to deal with a large number of issues. So I have been the chairman for 2 sessions, and I thank the Secretariat for the support given to me. And sitting beside me is the clerk, Ms. Yu, and she is an excellent clerk. I don't know who the chairman will be in the next session, and I wish him or her good luck.